Okay, Michael, I think we should probably get started if that's all right.
Of course, thank you, and nice to be with you all, ladies, and indeed the gentleman who's with us as well. Nice to have you too, Gavin. Thank you for the support. I'm known as the change guy as a speaker around the world. I normally do about 150 conferences a year traveling around the planet. I've done in my career some 2,700 odd conferences. To be honest, we've stopped counting. And most of my career, I've been involved in strategic change, helping businesses understand where things are moving to, and indeed how they can sort of move themselves into whatever future it is that arises for them in terms of their own business. So obviously at the moment I'm stuck at home. I'm now coming to you on Zoom from my dining room. I brought a banner from work so that it looked a little bit more professional. But ultimately what I've been doing during lockdown is focusing on what it is that we need to do beyond lockdown. How do we actually start to move into a sense of a future that may look a little bit different, that may in reality bring us back into some sense of normality. I'm not going to be talking about things like pivoting. I'm not going to be talking about the new normal. I think those are all cliches. But what I am going to share with you this morning is a little bit of innovative thinking. And this is, you're very much guinea pigs, and thank you for being so, because this is the very first time this new material that I've put together has ever been seen by anyone other than my wife. So I'd be very interested in, on the chat, commentary afterwards, your thoughts, your critiques, as well as whatever questions it is that you have. And obviously, in the new style of Zoom, I think that rather than expecting a speaker to come in and give you a typical 45-minute keynote, this is going to be a little bit shorter, in fact, quite a lot shorter, for the reason that we're all at peak attention. You know, Netflix's CEO said last year that Netflix's competitor is sleep. And a Netflix documentary is around 45 minutes. They have budgets of millions and casts of hundreds, and they're all much better looking than I am. So I'm not going to bore you by talking for the length of a Netflix documentary. As my wife said, I may have a reasonable voice, but if I'd been better looking, I would have been unstoppable. Sadly, I only got half of the package. So that's where it all comes from. It's kind of intriguing for me as well. You know, in terms of getting back to presenting, I think on live stages around the world, my next booking is October. How weird is that? I'm due to speak in Chicago in October, and then straight after that in the beginning of November in Miami, as the world hopefully by then will continue on its journey rather than keeping us all in this frozen lockdown situation. So what I'm going to be sharing with you this morning then, as I mentioned, is this uptake on innovative thinking and hopefully taking your business beyond 2020 and getting us back into a sense of some form of normality, since we've all been struck down by this incredible coronavirus in its own particular regard. And I think what we need to be aware of right up front is that 2020 was meant for us all to deliver the future. If you cast your minds back to the feelings that you had after a fairly rough year in 2019, was that as New Year's Eve rolled around for 2020, you were all expecting, as I was, a tech-smart, seamless, better connected planet. All the good stuff was meant to await us all. You know, we were talking of artificial intelligence and robotics as if these things were entirely normal. You know, would we be colonizing Mars with Elon Musk? Certainly not Richard Branson at the moment, who's pleading poverty, but that's a separate story altogether. It was only a few weeks into the year that we obviously had the crisis that we had. And why it shocked us all very significantly, a great deal more than it shocked the residents of the planet during Spanish flu 100 years ago, is that we've in our lifetimes seen nothing but modern change since man landed on the moon. July 20th, 1969 was the start effectively of that technological era. What did it bring us? That new era rolled out personal computing. We've had PCs now since the 1970s. They were brand new then and totally exciting and heralded a brand new world for us all. Every decade after that, we've seen change in our lifetimes. Into the 1980s, we got mobile telephones. Wow, what a huge deal that was for us. And that led to a Wi-Fi revolution in the 1990s, where we all started to get a great deal more connected. The new century had rolled around, and by now, as a world, we're collaborating on this new globalized platform, as we called it. And the last decade that we've just lived through, even the IT people use that phrase significantly, or that word significantly, I should say. It was all about convergence, bringing people together, this new globalized scenario. That's why, come December 31st last year, we were just expecting business as usual. And we planned our own business growths in whatever particular area that we were in, thinking of a normality and a new sense of excitement. After all, wasn't this meant to be the decade of plenty, 2020? This was the future. And it's always been a mystical number for us, because I think as long as we've been around, science fiction movies had always flown through to 2020. We're not quite in flying cars and living in cities on the moon, but we understood that things were going a great deal better. And those people who wanted to predict the future failed at it miserably. Where were we in business? With all that modernity, with all that decade by decade change that we'd seen, we were actually stuck in some pretty familiar routines, some regular practices and patterns, and we were driven by routine to the point that in the mornings, hell, we'd get into traffic as we drove into our place of work, and then we'd moan about traffic, which always struck me as a little bit weird, because how can you moan about traffic if you are the traffic? Wow. We've been creatures of habit as humans ever since we were born. And we were trying to find new ways to break out of those habits, but what we hadn't seen was the way that the world had been changing. And if you look at what was going on, there was a pendulum that had swung literally from west across to east, like that on an old-fashioned analog clock. What we hadn't noticed in our own lifetimes was the massive change that had taken place. In economic terms, the new dominance of the Asian region, where 63% of global growth, 2/3 of global trade was now taking place. We were concerned with the West because in our part of the world, in particular, we've always had a colonized influence from the West at some level, not quite from the US, but we're all aware of Donald Trump and what he was trying to do with all of his trade wars and the battles and the problems. And the reason for those is quite obvious and simple. America is only responsible for 11% of global growth. Europe, by the way, our previous colonizers, they're only responsible in Europe, with or without Britain, for 4% of global growth. And all of that was taking place in and around us. Yes, we were marginally aware of more Chinese people, but our school system never thought of teaching anybody Mandarin, which may well become the biggest issue of all in terms of the next few years that lie ahead of us. Things were different. What we'd noticed, although we hadn't seen the pendulum swing, was global flashpoints had started to develop. Politics was becoming more extreme. Countries seemed to be moving into more nationalized areas than they were globalized areas. Trade patterns, which had changed, had become a bone of contention. Trump was even threatening trade wars with Europe before the coronavirus struck. We all knew, of course, about immigration and the problems that that was bringing into these newly discovered nationalized countries. And also, we're all aware of how much pollution there was in our oceans and on the beaches. Plastic was a problem. Pollution was a problem. The environment was a problem. And all of these were manifestations of that pendulum swing that had taken place. And this was before the virus struck. Where did we find ourselves in that particular situation? Well, distrusting. Governments, wherever you were, whichever country you were in the world, they were seen as incompetent. They couldn't quite lead in business terms. The media, wow, that was fake news, wasn't it? I mean, who do you trust these days? It's kind of remarkable, really. The planet itself, as I've mentioned, was toxic, had to be, and we were killing ourselves slowly, if not quickly, depending on who you believe. And business itself, where we all are, was largely seen to be corrupt, inefficient, not developing as well as it ought to have done. Strange new planet. We were in a globalized era that was changing. And if you go to economists, they will tell you there have been 4 eras of globalization. The first globalization period was 1500 to 1800. Then it was all about land, culture, and trade around the world. The second globalized period, according to economists, was 1800 to 1900. That was dominated more by resources, a search for those. by power from various countries that wanted to extend their influence around the planet and the need for greater markets through the industrialized era. Globalization 3, technology, economics, and power. And that's a lot more familiar to us because that's what we've been living through. But now the economists are saying, whoa, hang on. We were living in a brand new era, technology, politics, and individualism. And they call that globalization 4.0. That was starting to have a significant bearing on where we found ourselves. We weren't ready to cope with it terribly well in business. Traditional thinking hadn't prepared us terribly well for it at all. All of us have businesses that run on this hierarchical triangular basis. You know, when business began in the early 1700s, in the form that we know it as today, we didn't have any reference point for building companies. How do you put groups of people together? The only point of reference that we had was the military. And armies have always had the general at the top and the troops being led at various levels. And our business today, which is probably why we talk of strategy and having war rooms and conquests and markets, is still based on thinking from the early 1700s. You know, we go from top to bottom. And this leadership that we found within business seems to have frozen us dramatically. The average age of a company director around the world right now is 63. The era of life that we're in right now has changed fundamentally during the average 63-year-old's life. We tend to cling to the past. We're not terribly good about accepting whatever comes into the future. And the older we get, we all know this, the more set in our ways we ultimately become. And what we've seen in business as a result of it is bureaucracy and red tape. And it's not just business, it's governments too, in their own particular regard. We've always needed a structure for managing people, but a very slow, very tedious set of rules and regulations had come into play. And that's where business found itself just before the black swan landed. A black swan, a totally unexpected event. No one ever predicted it. No one knew what this little coronavirus thing was until it landed on our shores. And it caused what the World Health Organization calls a pandemic. Now, we've seen black swan events before, things that are totally unexpected that come in and grab us in different levels. The first of those in recent memory was probably Black Monday of 1987, when excessive risk-taking on the stock market caused a fundamental crash. 398 days it took the market to recover from that particular pandemic. Our most recent one was the global financial crisis of 2007-2008, if you remember, caused by the subprime fiascos, people inventing stuff that didn't even exist. The markets crashed yet again, and it took 1,000 days for us to recover. The coronavirus pandemic, people who seem to know about these things are now saying our estimated recovery, ladies and gentlemen, is probably going to be around 2025. That's 4.5 years away from where we are right now, before normality resumes at some level. And that means we've got to find ways of doing business in a very turbulent, very strange, weirdly affected market. And weird is probably why I've got a photograph here of Vladimir Lenin. He doesn't often pitch up, this old Vlad, in terms of an economic presentation. But I loved it when Vladimir Lenin said about 100 years ago, this. What an amazing comment that was. And if you don't speak Russian, let me translate that for you. There are decades, he said, when nothing happens, and then there are weeks when decades happen. Boy, has that just happened to us now. Everything changed instantly. We know that. Ignorance led out, disbelief, uncertainty, confusion, and typical anxiety has been the result of what's transpired through this black swan landing. And of course, when anxiety happens, we're not too sure how to handle ourselves, what to think and what to do. Again, it's unusual in a business presentation to have a picture of a lion tamer. But this guy, Cecil Beatty, was a lion tamer exactly 100 years ago. He was the most successful lion tamer ever in the history of lion taming. You know, when you think about the old circus, thank God we don't have those anymore. You know, the lion tamer with a whip cracking it and the massive lion cowering away in the background. This man took in the chair with the whip. The whip, by the way, is totally for show in terms of old lion taming scenarios. He knew what the lion's reaction would be if he pointed an awful lot of changing stuff at the lion itself, the four legs of the chair. It causes anxiety. And the lion, even in that picture, was suffering from an amount of anxiety because there were too many stimuli coming at it. You could flight, you could fight, or you freeze. And he knew the lion would freeze because it was information overload. And anxiety theory says when you see too many things happening at once, you don't take fright, you don't take flight, you literally freeze. Sorry, not freeze. And Clyde Beatty in 1920 knew exactly that. He lived to the age of 60 as a lion tamer because he knew exactly that if he put too much stimulus in front of the lion, it would freeze and not attack him in that particular regard. Our governments around the world in the last few weeks have seen the same moving chair. Their freeze response was initially that, lockdown. 2 billion people right now, as we sit here, are placed into quarantine of some kind or the other. Our work-life routines have been totally disrupted. The governmental controls have irritated people enormously. Social media now, this great connectivity that we've shared in our lifetimes, has erupted with outrage. Negativity has prevailed absolutely everywhere. And strangely, the reason for this presentation, I believe business leadership has completely and utterly disappeared, which is staggering, and it's amazing. And it's something that we need to be incredibly concerned with and about in order for us to get back to some sense of normality before 2025. Without business leadership, we're left in the hands of governments, remember, and they are frozen. They don't quite know what to do. They turn to their scientists for expertise and help and assistance with modeling for pandemics. Here's Milton Friedman, one of the best economists of the last century. And I loved it when Milton said this: the government's solution to a problem is usually as bad as the problem itself. Now, we know that. We understand that as you sit at your homes now on lockdown, because we're in the midst of that classical change curve. We know that we need from virus to vaccine. We've been told that could take at least 18 to 24 months, and compounded by the fact that it may take markets until 2025 to recover. And instead of any classical form of change taking us in a straight line, which they taught us to do in junior school, the shortest distance between 2 points, virus to vaccine, should be a straight line, we take this huge negative change curve. Kubler-Ross put this change curve together about 20 years ago. It was described as grief, the grief curve, when they were looking at people who were bereaved. It's a curve of human behavior, because as soon as we got past our freeze mode, the first initial response was denial, rapidly followed by anger, taking us further and further away from where we should have been making progress into this wallowing trough. Denial, anger, fear, hopefully acceptance at the base of that curve, when the human brain can't imagine anything more in terms of negativity. And from there, we start to bring ourselves out. A little bit of hope, progress, the sun shines a little bit from behind the clouds, and ultimately belief in the new system, and boom, the sun shines all over again. The distance that we take over this change curve straight line is something that's absolutely going to kill your business. It's a change curve that isn't linear. We actually can swing like a pendulum on this as well, both backwards and forwards. It's a remarkable thing. When we went to stage 4 from lockdown stage 5 here in South Africa, we'd almost gotten through the fear part. We were getting to the point of acceptance, and then all of a sudden we swing back to fear and anger and even denial right now. So it's not even a continuous journey. It can take us forever to get through. All of this caused by a microscopic virus. Governments called in the experts, the people who knew. And there are only 2 types of experts, by the way. There are those who don't know, and there are those who don't know that they don't know. Nobody could have predicted this, and indeed nobody had. Even the forms of modeling that are taking place right now, that are bombarding us from the World Health Organization, from the Oxford Institutes, from multinational pharmaceutical companies all around the world, are totally different. Nobody can agree on the same damn thing. They won't even agree on talking to each other to find a common way forward. You could rather, if you wanted an expert, take a chimpanzee, give it a dart, point the chimpanzee at the dartboard and ask it to throw and hit the bullseye. The chimp has exactly as much chance of hitting a bullseye as any of the so-called scientific experts that we've got right now. It's been proven. What's been predicted by our experts? Yep, the worst recession since the 1930s. We know that economic activity has stopped. 200 million jobs are expected to be lost. That's a hell of a lot of people around the world. 1.2 billion jobs are at risk, and global trade, it's now being said, will be down a minimum of 20%. It's going to be a strange new world that we move into. You know, that influence of what was happening around that pendulum swing from before. America, at best, has been predicted to go down by 3% in terms of its economic delivery. Europe down 6%, Africa a minimum of 7%, and the only economy that will grow because of its sheer size and previous dominance, following on from a 30-year track record of constant growth, which, by the way, has lifted the Chinese out of poverty since 1980. Only the Asian markets will grow by 1.2%. Things are going to be very different into our future, and we need to understand there's got to be a new formula for business success. If we're looking for a new horizon, if we're looking for a new way forward, we've got to eliminate what we used to do in the past. We used to believe that our past, modified gently into our present, would give us a sense of future. That was fine when the world changed incredibly slowly. Today, the world's changing incredibly quickly. Our new formula for business success says it doesn't matter what you did in the past. It doesn't matter what you're doing in the present, because the present doesn't last, by the way, as long as we'd like it to. It's already gone. What you do that's different, what you do that's unique, may, if you're lucky, and there's no guarantee of it, help you get through and deliver a new sense of future. Humans are strange creatures. We operate through our feelings, our thoughts, and they become our beliefs. Maslow understood that in 1943 when he came out with that famous hierarchy of needs curve. What did he say? Survival first, safety after that, friends and contact after that, then esteem, and ultimately you'd end up in an art gallery once you'd actualized yourself. All of those were functional, emotional, and social things, because that's what humans are. Well, Maslow is irrelevant today. Here's the new hierarchy of needs for 2020. They're still functional, emotional, and social. But right now, what people want before they do anything, as soon as they open their peepers in the morning, is they need Wi-Fi. After that, they need coffee. And they possibly need coffee and Wi-Fi at exactly the same time. I had to put them together on the pyramid at some level. Emotionally, they want their social media because they're connected. They want that instant gratification. And what we've seen is they need a sense of purpose. Right now, governments are not delivering a sense of purpose, and missing leadership in action is not showing any form of purpose whatsoever. At the end, I'll tell you of one example that I've found around the world of great, solid leadership. But I want to come to that right at the end because I don't want to distract you right now. Here's what our businesses looked like pre-coronavirus. Let's be brutally frank about this. We were overly administered, overly managed, pretty poor at communication, and not doing a good job at collaboration with our target markets at all, which may well indicate why business leadership is so absent today. What markets wanted, what people wanted, was collaboration, relationships, and experience. And they wanted that through a form of technology because they're used to new technologies right now. That V is so different from where business was to where it needs to be, that that's what we've got to overcome by providing it through a sense of purpose to our target markets, whoever they are now, customers, employees, suppliers, channel partners, whoever they are. We need a new business focus, and it's not on administration and management and the old hierarchy of control. We need to drive communication. We need to engage people enormously. We need to make sure that we understand their priorities and we refocus on people's sense of purpose. We need to unify everything that we do, every message, to align our businesses to be delivering nothing other than that. We need new best practices, and they're going to have to be adapted out of the modern era in which we find ourselves right now. And we've got to deliver. We've got to drive these through, and we've got to implement them. And we've come from a very poor start since coronavirus started. What I'm saying is your business needs to be people focused, and it needs to be there very, very quickly indeed. The old formula with business was quite simple in our lifetimes. Mix your business with the right people and the right technology and form a partnership. We didn't even do it terribly well, folks. Now we need an agile business. We know that people out there are more connected. They want to be more involved. They are more engaged than ever before. They're also very comfortable with connected things. The world of technology has made us instantly available and connected, totally secure in terms of where we go. And all of that right now is where business needs to find itself during and beyond the virus itself. It requires leadership to understand and shape that through. And if you look, and I'm not a political commentator at all, but if you look at what the South African government has done right now, even they've made a piss poor example of the leadership. We had a president that set out with a personalized message that worked, and now a centralized collective has overruled him, undermined him, slowed it down, confused him. This doesn't make any sense, because it's old-fashioned thinking that gets us nowhere. This little virus has already shown us how quickly things can and must change. We've started to cut through red tape and bureaucracy. You know, it's amazing how quickly water tankers could have been delivered to areas that have never had water before. It's amazing how quickly PPE could be delivered into hospitals and to workers. All of these things would have taken years and tender processes and things that have gone through completely before. And in business, as well as in government, we've seen this ability to snip through the red tape and bureaucracy very quickly. We used to hide behind it, and hiding behind it delayed results. What we found is that we need this new, driven and focused leadership platform that's got to be worked on and communicated now. We've got to understand what's important and what's urgent. And we need to learn it, we need to look for it, we need to live with it, and we need to let go of the things that aren't. Highly important and highly urgent, your people, your customers, and your partners. Why, oh, why have we not led and communicated with them? A standard PR release saying, oh, I'm sorry, we're shut down, our call centers remain open, we're running at limited capacity, we're there for you when you need us. Bullshit is the cry, and you'll have to excuse my expression. We need to understand what people want, what customers and partners want. We need to look for ideas and opportunities and growth from that understanding. And we need to live with better ethics and morals and values. We were starting to get there before the virus hit us. And what we've got to let go is the stuff that we dealt with pre-virus every single day of our lives. The negativity, the habits, and the routine. Wow. It's a new world. We need conversational design that works with everybody. You've got to map and learn a journey. You've got to shape your message. You've got to package the content of it. You've got to deliver it with impact. You've got to engage the feedback loops and then take it all the way around and keep this continuous conversational design scenario rolling. It's going to be essential that you co-create this, that you communicate it. It's your unique formula, your sense of mystery, your business that's got to come back, your DNA with all of your target markets, and you've got to do it to generate trust and shared vision at a time when significant distrust is happening. You've got to be connected, you've got to be conversive, you've got to be supportive of new ideas, of people in the process, and learning all of your new behaviors. These are the prerequisites for modern business. If you want success, we're going to have to collaborate. We're going to have to lead. And that's my message to you this morning. Thank you. Now, the one example of leadership, it's a weird thing. I want you to go onto YouTube after this is all over and just type in on YouTube in the search bar, Nando's lockdown. Robbie Brosen, the original founder of Nando's, put out a lockdown message to his Nandockers just as lockdown was beginning. He sent them a message. They made it in video form. He narrated it himself. It wasn't an advert, and we all know how good Nando's advertising is. I wish I'd thought of this campaign myself. It's sheer bloody genius. What he did was he sent out a message to his Nandockers, his people, saying why we're turning off the flame temporarily for the first time ever at Nando's, and what I want you to do and think about and prepare for as we come out of it when we turn those flames back on. It was so good it went viral. I've been running amongst 20-odd thousand people that I'm connected to on social media, a challenge for anyone around the world to show me anything better. Nothing has come forward. A South African innovation, a South African means of communication, but sadly, there's just one of them. I need you to think about your own leadership. I think you need to understand your own position. And if you are a company of one, a company of six, a company of 600, it doesn't matter. Your leadership is to your markets, to your people, to your customers, to your base. And all we've seen is freeze. It's a weird concept. We've got to start thinking differently for future success. Sure. Right, that's me. I haven't even, it's weird, by the way, presenting only to your own camera. Thankfully, I can see a few of your faces on here. I'd love your comments on this. I'd love your questions on this. Let's open it up to all of you. I'd love your critique as well, by the way. I'm going to put my email address on. Let me just type that in quickly. I'm also very happy to share these slides with anyone who wants them. All you're going to have to do is email me for them. And there's my email address on the chat box now, michael@theothermichaeljackson.com. If you go to my website, by the way, which is theothermichaeljackson.com, there are easy ways to get to my social media buttons. I've got Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn are the predominant forms that I use for business communication. And you're all welcome to join me on that at any stage so that you can follow my ongoing thoughts. Because as I say, this is the first presentation I've delivered of this new material ever. Thank you. Thank you for watching it. I didn't see anyone click off. I don't know if anyone clicked off while we were on this. But it's been a privilege to present it to you, and thank you. It's helped me, and I hope it's helped you as well in the same vein. So over to you. Live questions, chat box, whatever it is that you want. Feedback, anything that you think about, please. I'm happy to talk to you about whatever's there. I don't know how long that was. Was that about 30 minutes?
Yes, spot on, 30 minutes. Perfect. Wow, Michael, thank you so much. I think you've given us all a bit of a shock to the system and a food for thought. I actually wrote down your spiral down, the denial, anger, fear, acceptance. And I pinned myself at that stage, and now at the end of the presentation, I'm pinning myself somewhere else.
Right, the famous change curve, that one.
Yes, the change curve. You changed it through your presentation. So, okay, let's first do some questions. Leslie, you've put your hand up. You're welcome to unmute yourself.
Okay. Morning. Thanks, Michael. That was an excellent presentation. Very challenging to our thought process.
Thank you, Leslie.
I think what stood out for me, well, many things, but the one that actually stood out towards the end, you mentioned something about the fact that we need to create our own unique way of relating to people, in our own business. And I think that seems to be a trend across, many platforms, that it's more personalized now. It's not business as usual, and people want that human touch. They want to feel you. They need you to be, honest. They need you to be authentic. And it's actually about the personal touch. So it's leading me to think that one needs to actually maybe reinvent oneself first before one reinvents their own business.
I would go back to your sorry, Leslie, I beg your pardon.
You're going to come through your business, your personality, your authenticity, the way that you are, your character. The way it comes to your business now, I think, is what's going to set us to a better start post-lockdown, whatever that means. And now is probably the time to actually prepare that and prepare oneself first before you actually get your business reinvented. So that personal touch, to me, is what seems to be coming out in your presentation and in other webinars that one is listening to.
Cool, and I thank you for that, because and why I put that slide back up on the screen share is because all of this conversational design that you're coming from will emerge from your own DNA. You know, Louise has asked the question as well, what do we do next? What do we do first? I think you've got to spend a bit of time reflecting, both of you, in terms of your DNA of your organization. When you set out to build whatever it was that you're building, you had your own uniqueness, your own DNA, as unique to your own business as your fingerprints in that particular level. We've almost lost the story of our DNA along our business journeys because we get bogged down by day-to-day routine of everything. I mean, it was amazing. As I lifted and shifted from my Johannesburg office to my home, for example, I had 143 bloody emails in my inbox, and we all have hundreds of bloody emails in our inboxes. I've used the time to get rid of everything, to dispose of everything, to go back and to start thinking about what it is that I wanted to do as a speaker around the world. And I'm in the process of engaging my particular clients now, the ones that I've spoken to and the ones that I hope to address as live conferences get back to the order of normality, or indeed through this medium now. I'm hoping to address them on my own beliefs about where I go from. My own DNA was to try and write unique materials that I could bring together that made people think. And what I need to do is tell people that I can help them think in a non-threatening way. You know, but it's not about my DNA, it's more about yours, both of you, Leslie and Louise, in that question as well. I think that understand why you were in business in the first instance, and then start to communicate that back. You know, there's an awful lot of stuff that I've seen right now that's going on where people are offering me, and I posted on this on social media recently, webinars and downloads and PDFs and all kinds of things to focus my thinking on whatever. I reckon you need to get rid of all of that stuff and start to really focus on what matters to you. We've got some amazing thinking time for the next couple of weeks. I was horrified, by the way, when lockdown was going to be lifted up from stage 5 to stage 4 because I hadn't finished working on my own bloody materials yet. And in many respects, I've actually come to the point where, like everyone else, I've gone through that tremendously depressive change curve. God, how am I going to win? My next job is in October. How the hell am I going to survive? And I've realized that not only did I have to lift and shift physically, but I had to lift and shift myself mentally. So I'm gearing myself up completely to run an office where, in fact, I get to stay home with my wife and little doggies a little bit longer than I ever did before. Last year, my wife told me I was 168 days in hotels around the world. You know, I've almost been 40 days with her right now, and I haven't killed her, and she hasn't killed me, which is the most amazing thing. But we're in this situation now where I'm mapping and learning and relearning my own journey, shaping my new message, of which you've seen a part, packaging it differently, hoping to deliver it with more impact, and then engaging those feedback loops with people around the world. I think that what I have to become, for example, and I think all of us watching this on the webinar today, I think we all need to become experts at this. And for me, it's Zoom. It could well be Cisco WebEx, which a lot of clients seem to want to use. And sadly, it could be Microsoft Teams, which corporates seem to be locked into. And even Microsoft themselves, off the record, have said they think Teams is very clunky. It is. It's like PowerPoint. You know, PowerPoint wasn't designed for people to write presentations properly. Whoever designed PowerPoint had never given a presentation in his or her life. So Zoom is by far and away the most prominent platform, and maybe what we need to do is sign up for it rather than just use the free 40-minute version. We're going to have to learn how to master this. We're going to have to learn how to create the right look and feel. It might be that you're going to go and get a green screen to chroma key behind you so that, you know, people aren't looking at what pictures you've got on the walls or what books you're reading or all that kind of stuff. Everyone's learning new stuff. The more professional you look and you are, the quicker you learn this medium and this material, the better it will be in the long term. And if it does anything, it's forcing us to become more communicative in the right method, in the right style. You know, I don't want, as I've had from my bank, letters saying, we love you. Well, they didn't love me last month when I had a 51 Rand 50 overdraft or whatever the hell it was. You know, if you need us, please reach out. Our call center remains open 24 hours a day, where you spend 3 hours on a call center. I mean, it's not that stuff that people want anymore. That's just irritating, blind stupidity. And it may explain why marketing, advertising, PR in its own regard is changing fundamentally right now. You know, people are moaning at the moment in South Africa about magazines closing down. They didn't buy them beforehand, right? And now they're worried about the lack of advertising in it because people aren't going to advertise. My daughter works for a billboard company. She designs graphic moving video billboards across Africa. All of their business is gone. You can't put billboards on for sale when no one's on the roads driving around. They're having to reinvent them. We all are having to reinvent ourselves. Go back to the DNA. Jesus, that was a long answer to that question, Leslie. I'm sorry. Leslie, it looks like you're sitting back so far. It's almost like I'm browbeating you to do this. I apologize. I'm sorry for that. I get a bit passionate about this stuff, so I kind of carry on about it regardless. But other questions, other thoughts or feedback, I'm happy to take it all, guys.
You're welcome to put it in the chat bar, ladies, or gentlemen. Gavin, you're welcome to. Otherwise, raise your hand. Michael, I can ask a question on that. Perhaps if you can provide an example, because I think at the moment I found that one of the steps should be, maybe as part of fear and that is debilitating. Like you actually can't think further than your nose, you know. So let's take the bank, for example. What good response would have been for a bank instead of we're here for you, listen to our call center that you wait for 3 hours on?
I think that maybe this will help you in terms of this slide as well. You know, most businesses, my bank in particular, I have two banks, but my banks in particular, they're very good at administration and management. They are appalling at communication. And we've got to learn from that lesson. What people want is a sense of collaboration. They want to reduce their own anxiety. They want to know that things are going to be okay, or that your business has relevance to them into the future. So what's the messaging that we can create that's based on your own DNA that's coming through? You know, my wife has been dragging me over the last several months to a nail and hand bar, or whatever they call it, for a manicure and a pedicure. You know, their business is shut down possibly until level 1. What have they been doing with it? They have put out a series of vouchers. They're saying, you know, look, we need your support right now. We're here for you, and what we want to do is offer you a benefit. So we'll give you a 25% discount on our normal treatment prices if you buy a voucher that helps us pay our staff right now. So they appeal to the good nature of their customer at that particular level. I had a conversation with a photographer the other day who is starving to death. Now, this guy takes amazing photographs when in his own time, he takes them at corporate events, which is where I know him from. He takes them at weddings. So he's also lost all of that business. But he goes onto the roof of his building at night and takes amazing moonscapes, lightning style photographs that are multi-layered and magnificent. That moon shot that I had, by the way, in my slide deck is a photograph that I bought from him. It's a Christo photograph. And he phoned me and he said, look, Mike, I'm starving. What do I do? And we sort of sat and we talked about it over a virtual cup of coffee. Literally what he's doing right now, instead of just putting out great images onto his social media, he's saying to his people, look, you know, I've always taken great photographs. Here are my own personal collection. You're free to download one of them, but please would maybe consider buying me a cup of coffee. And he loaded up on a thing called Buy Me a Cup of Coffee, which is the website, buymeacupofcoff.ee, which is the actual website. He phoned me after an hour of starting it. He'd made $100 in his first hour. He goes, why didn't I do this weeks ago? So he was appealing, as the nail bar was, to the good nature of people. In whatever businesses that you have, for all of us who are watching right now, where is your business relevance to your market? It existed before in some way. How do you find a way to communicate that relevance, to collaborate with your people, to build on that sense of relationship with them that they're so looking for, and deliver them even a virtual customer experience? You know, for me, while I've been working on this new material, as I say, you're the very first people to have seen it, it was a case of saying, I'll give these away free. And normally I make my living by doing presentations for companies. My new style, by the way, this presentation that you're seeing for companies into the future is going to be taking their story and shaping it around these messages, helping companies uncover that. Because now I think it's less about me and more about them. And so again, you know, it comes into this aspect here of that people focus. You've got to engage your people with proper communication. And that comes from understanding and refocusing on your own priorities. You know, if the truth be told, I love traveling around the world and flying on airlines and sleeping in hotel rooms and being on my own away from the wife. I have to say that very carefully because she's working from home in the next room. But we'll modify that. We'll modify all of those behaviors. And you know what I'm doing around that is unifying and aligning my own activities to think about how I do this better. I need to become a master at this, because this platform, like social media does, opens the door to every man, woman, and their dog to get on and pretend to be experts. We need to master this means of communication. And that would explain why Zoom in its own right has gone through, I think it's 4,000% growth on its shares. It's kind of ironic, actually, that people don't really understand it. I don't know if you know the story that there's a company called Zoom Technologies, also on the stock exchange in the States. It's not the Zoom that we're on now. It's a completely different, unrelated company. Their share price went up 3,000%. The New York Stock Exchange had to cease trading in them because people didn't know what shares they were buying. This is new to people, right? So this is going to be the dominant platform, I believe. I don't have any vested interest in it. How do we become really cool at it? How do we have that virtual cup of coffee? One of the things that I'm doing every single day right now, and it was my wife is in HR, so she's a lot smarter than I am. She said to me, you know, are you reaching out to people? Look through your phone list and reach out to 2 or 3 people every day and have a sincere conversation with them. Don't try and sell them anything because we're being bombarded by stuff to buy. Rather build that relationship. Focus on them. And I've phoned people that I haven't spoken to in months who are delighted, thank God, to have heard from me. All of them have answered their phones, which is a good thing. And it's just rekindling a relationship. This is the perfect time to do exactly that. So I think we've got to start working around those kind of levels. It's going to be up to ourselves. And by focusing and being more involved in this kind of stuff, you tend to work out that, you know what, things aren't that bad. You can actually stay and manage and run this quite well. You know, all of us can make it down to the shops, thank God. All of us can survive a little bit. Your bank will probably give you a 3-month a lien on your mortgage. Your car company, if you've got car debt, would probably do the same thing. I'm discovering how amazing it is, how little money I've had to spend in the last 40 days. Although I keep going to Woolworths for fresh veg with a mask on. But that's me. Does that help?
Yes, I think it does.
Good.
Anybody else have more questions? Right, I think that's it. I haven't seen anything come up. You're welcome to pop them as they come, ladies and gentlemen.
Of course.
I would like to then just, we've got a bit of time, Michael, if you don't mind. Have you got till 10:30? We booked out till then.
I'm totally people focused, engaged, refocused on you and aligning my business to you. I have whatever you want.
Wonderful, thank you. So then, ladies, I've said to you that our national leader Hester not manage to connect. She's just sent me a message, which now I've lost. She just wants to let you guys know, for those of you who are not yet part of SACBW, it's an incredible resource to draw from. Not only do we have these amazing networks that we very seamlessly just moved online, and already there's lots of feedback on how beneficial it's been just to connect in these times. So at the moment, she says that we are very lucky. We've got 40% discount if you join as an annual member at the moment. So that's really incredible. For those that are already members, the portal that you get is really helpful for that. And then you can also just sign up as a basic inline free member. So please look at that. And I'm sure we'll send an email afterwards with her email address. If you have any challenges or needs through the SACBW, they will help where they can. With that, can we just go around the virtual room and introduce ourselves briefly? Keep it to a minute or so, of your name, your company, what you do, and then Michael, if you could put that slide again on the curve. I keep forgetting the name, the denial and such. And then if we could just identify where we are perhaps on that curve. If you're like me, you can say before the presentation and after the presentation, just so we can gauge and maybe share very shortly what you are struggling most with related to this curve. So I'm going to pinpoint you and you can just unmute yourself when you're ready. I see Louise is unmuted. If you don't mind, will you go first?
Sure. My name's Louise. I'm actually sitting in KZN on a farm, which has been a big bonus in this time of lockdown, especially when you've got a 16-year-old teenage son who goes to Michael House. So yes, luckily we're here with lots of space for the young man. It's quite a complicated business scenario that we have. I've worked for my husband and his business partner for about the last 14 years, and they actually own a construction company in Mozambique. And we've all actually been in Mozambique since the late 90s, but educate, we're South African born and educating our children in South Africa. And we also have a South African procurement company, which mainly buys and exports building materials to Mozambique. We have built in Hoedspruit as well. So yeah, it's a challenging business because obviously construction doesn't rely too much on technology. It's a very people-intensive, labor-intensive thing. That the procurement side is less tricky, but at you buying things, so we're busy developing software to manage the process, but in terms of the physical goods. So yeah, so it's challenging times. Most of our work is in northern Mozambique, linked to the oil and gas. So that's also going to be challenging, and we're not only dealing with COVID, but there's quite serious Islamist insurgency up there. So yeah, it's we've got a lot we actually do have work, but obviously all these restrictions and bureaucracy is tying our hands somewhat, but we are trying to mobilize and get going. So yeah, challenging times. In terms of the curve, I can relate to the pendulum. But yeah, I've tried to remain hopeful throughout this process and not focus too much, try and predict what's going to happen because we just don't know. But I really can relate to what Michael's saying about leadership, and I think it's desperately needed. And as I asked earlier, it's to try and just work out, where to begin and how to navigate through these times.
Let me just quickly give you a response to that as well, Louise. Thinking of people with your construction workers. Hopefully you've got phone numbers for them. You can contact them over a social media platform, like a WhatsApp or a messaging. So, I've been working with a restaurateur down the road where I normally go when I'm in Joburg for my breakfasts. And he was panicked about what he needed to do with his waiters and waitresses. They were in a situation of total panic and total anxiety, not even knowing if they'll have a job to come back to. So he established a WhatsApp group for all of them. And he communicates with them every single day about what he knows, what's going on. And even if there's nothing, he gives them news headlines that he can't tell them about his own business. What he's found as a result of that is that they're sending him little amen things and going, thank you, Paul, for staying in touch with us. Thank you for engaging. And we've done a similar thing with a company in the engineering maintenance space where they've got people at very low level who are out there in their workforces. They've got separate WhatsApp groups for employees at that level. They've got foremen, they've got site managers, all of those, and they send them out messaging. It's just made people feel more connected. Moving them away from that fearful stage. It's just, so even basic communication on a constant level helps me believe that we've got a relationship going on at some level. So I hope that works for you.
Thank you. Yes, we are trying to elevate that whole communication thing. So thank you. Yes.
Perfect. Thanks, Louise. Elizabeth, will you go, please?
Hi, everybody. Lockdown, what can we say? I've been in a lucky position to, we do personal loans at most of the municipalities. So our process are mostly online. So we didn't have a great month, but it wasn't a bad month. It wasn't that bad entirely. We did have applications. I'm just struggling with those people in our business that's blaming Corona for things that went wrong last year. They had problems last year. They were doing things wrong last year, before Corona, and now it's Corona's fault. You know, so I'm struggling a bit with that, just to make them see that it's not Corona. There's other stuff wrong in your business. So I think I'm at anger at the moment, but I'm also on progress.
Sorry, you can swing in both directions. But I think,
Okay.
you see, the easiest thing for that is that it is easiest to blame the initial demon. It's also easy for people to try and hide behind the demon and go, I couldn't do this because of this. And if you can show them, again, through a leadership platform, that things are different and they will be different, and you're going to engage with them and make sure that you're not making the excuses for the same stuff, but that you're going to use this time to guide them through the curve. Send them out this on. I'll send you PDFs of this presentation if you like it. Send them this slide. Start talking to them and say, let's understand where we all are. Let's get a group discussion going and see if you can reframe and refocus them on the important stuff, so that they don't then have an excuse to go back and blame the things that have taken place at previous times. So there are things you can do with it, but I'm glad to hear you have some business. Wow. Well, just send me a detail on the chat box of where the loans come from, because I may need to call you in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Gavin, will you go?
Yes, I'm back. Sorry, I missed the sort of last probably third of the presentation. I had a call that I had to take, so my apologies there. So just probably where I am on this this curve, probably it's easier to say, so what business I do. So I run a business that is a banking advisory business. I was a banker for 35 years. I headed up client acquisition for ABSA's business banking division across South Africa and Africa until March last year. Set up my own business where I assist companies get funding. So whether that be bank funding, funding through finance houses, or government-backed funding, I assist there. So what happened in this lockdown period was quite interesting, because my business is prefaced on face-to-face meetings with clients, because when they are putting their whole thing in your faith in you, that you've got to have a a touchy-feely type thing. So that changed a little bit. I've typically, or I on purpose didn't want to do any of the relief funding right in the beginning, because I thought that would just be a bit of a hit and miss. And also I think you become a punch bag for the client when he doesn't get his loan approved or whatever, and it takes so long and that. So I steered clear of that. What we did is a whole lot of prospecting with people and built networks. And at the end of last week, beginning of this week, I managed to get a funding mandate from a new client where so I charge an engagement fee up front to start a process, and they paid that. So now we're going through the process to get them some funding. So that's for about 1.5 million rands worth of funding. So we're busy with that. And then the new thing that's coming out, the banks will probably announce either today or over the weekend, is the 200 billion rand government-backed loan scheme that the banks have all entered into. So if you look at the previous relief funds, I was on a National Small Business Chamber webinar the other day, and they said only 6% of their clients that they surveyed had managed to get any funding via these relief funds. And it's probably a combination of, that one, they didn't fill in the documentation correctly, you didn't have all the documents that you needed, et cetera, et cetera. So as a person who knows what the banks look for, we've started an initiative where we're starting to talk to accountants and so on with their firms and with their clients, and saying, so we'll help put together those funding proposals and navigate through that system for you. So it's been an interesting sort of curve here, because obviously, and I've seen this curve many times in my corporate life when we go through change things. And yes, you vacillate between one, that you way on the right at some time, yeah, and you come back, and especially when the level 4 story, you know, came out, you went all the way back again, you know, with anger. So, because I'm a golfer as well, and I think, well, why can't we go out and walk on the course there? You know, there's social distancing anyway, because most of the guys are either there, and there's nobody next to each other while we play. You know, so anyway, we got to get through that. But the call that I had just now, and sorry, I know that I'm taking a bit of time, but the call I had just now was a guy that I'd engaged with, and I've had a relationship with him over the past year, and we got to the point in February where he said, no, he'd like to, because I do retainers. I work for clients on retainers as well. We advise them on their banking and how to get bank ready and you know, strategy around their financing. And we got to a point at the end of February that he'd agreed, yes, no, he wanted to bring me on and pay me a retainer, et cetera, et cetera. But of course then, you know, COVID-19 happened and it sort of went on the back burner. And then he says, no, he wants to resurrect it again, and we'll probably start from the 1st of June. So that was quite nice to hear that. So that's why I had to, because I've been phoning him for, you know, during the course of this thing, and he just hadn't returned my calls. And I said to him, I was a bit worried that either you were, you know, so inundated with work that you just couldn't, you know, get to the calls, or that you just zoned out completely. This thing had devastated you. So he said, no, it was about the work story. He had lots of work. So I was pleased to hear that. No. So that's my story.
Thanks for sharing, Gavin.
And I think, if I may just jump in quickly there, I think, you know, we talked a lot about leadership through communication, but an awful lot of that can come through trust. And you're in very much a trusted advisory capacity role there. And if I look at what I've seen across the media platforms that I get involved in and that I'm aware of, there's this massive amount of confusion, disinformation, and absolute chaos regarding what the government is doing with these relief packages. You know, are they racially driven? Are they available to all? Where are they? Who are they? Christ, it's bureaucracy. And people are just throwing up their hands in absolute anger and fear at this point. You know, when you shape that narrative and you clarify and send that out to your people, I would even be putting stuff onto my social media platform right now and urging people to share it, saying, listen, you can trust me through all this confusion. I'll share and shape that with you. And calls to your clients on an ongoing basis. You know, you're the trusted advisor at that level, and you need to lead and get that communication flowing to that level, Gavin. And well done on your new piece of business, by the way.
Mm-hmm. And interestingly, so I've got a retainer with a restaurant client, and they've got a group of fast food restaurants, and they've got a group of upmarket restaurants. And they opened one in November. What a time to open, just to try and get the you know, the Christmas thing and so on. And of course now 3 months into it, the whole thing is like, you know, collapsed. But what I helped, and in the family they've also got like a shopping center group as well. So I've helped navigate them through getting payment holidays for their debt. You know, and just talking to the guy about some of the stuff that is happening, and in the beginning, the first 2 weeks, man, it was you could tell the anger in him, and you know, in the frustration and so on. And then, but you talk through things with him, and then in the last couple of weeks, it's been a very different conversation. He's sort of got a plan now. We've worked out what we needed to do, and so on, and we're busy. We're going to be obviously applying for this the government-backed loan scheme, because that's about kicking forward for, it's like startup capital, you know, post-lockdown startup capital for working capital. So we're going to start doing that and so on. But it was amazing how it changed, you know, with him also on this curve, you know, and you just had to be almost like, because you his advisor, as a punch bag for him, and listen to him and say, okay, I understand, you know, the frustration you're going through, et cetera, but let's see what we can do, and, you know, what's in our control that we can try and push forward and do this and do that, you know. So it was an interesting journey with him.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Gavin. Right, Tina, if you can go, please, and just keep it a little short so we can just get through everybody before 10:30. Thanks.
I just wanted to jump in very quickly and say, you know what's intriguing about this, and thank you to those of you. I understand that a lot of people have got time, that they've got other commitments to get to. What's always been intriguing to me about this particular video conferencing platform scenario is that I always, as I said, I wanted to be briefer up front than a regular keynote, because I value, and everybody seems to value more on every conversation that I've had on these, the dialogue time is so important, because we need that clarity and we need that relationship stuff coming through. So thank you to sharing, and I'll shut up and listen to whoever else has a point. Thank you.
Tina, you're just still on mute. Let's just quickly see if we can unmute you. There you go.
There we are. You hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. I'm involved with business and team development of skills, with the result that I want is that people will enjoy their job more and give more, even if it's not their ideal job. And that involves things like leadership development. It involves customer service development and sales skills, as well as even waiter skills. And I love what I'm doing, but of course, all the quotes that were out in March were put on hold. And so I've been without income for 2 months now, and there's still no prospect. I'm busy working on offering online sales skills, especially with an emphasis on how to deal with exactly what we're talking about here, build relationships with clients, not phoning them up and asking them, do you want to buy a car or whatever it is. So that's what I'm working on, but it's a bit daunting when there's no income and the bank starts yelling and everyone else is yelling and I'm also yelling. But I love what I'm doing, and my focus is on the workforce in South Africa, who literally see their job as a job instead of a chance to grow, to get better, to be better today than yesterday, and give more and actually be promoted and become better. Thank you for that moment of my introduction.
Tina, do you have a good social media presence? Facebook, Twitter,
fairly
that kind
good.
of thing?
Yes, fairly good.
You see, what I will be doing there as well right now is pushing out bits of almost teaser material, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, 2 or 3 points or a single points that go, wow, if you do this, you'll achieve this, you know,
Yeah.
based on your own materials. If you'd like to know more, contact me for it. But, you know, the hard sell, as you say right now, is just not what people want. They're so bewildered and shell-shocked by what they have that as we swing through the pendulum and get more towards acceptance and hope, this will start to become more normal. At the moment, it's very abnormal. We're going to have to grin and bear it for the time being. But there are ways that you can build that profile of yours and keep it top of mind. The worst thing you could do is go dark and hide yourself away. And, you know, it is just a question of mastering this bloody platform, videoing yourself upon it, making on Microsoft, whatever you've got on your desktop or your laptop, using Microsoft Photos, using the camera thing to make little short videos. If you go and have a look at my own social media, I push out social media videos from this platform in my dining room. And it's easy enough to do once you get the hang of it. But you need to let people be aware of you and you build that relationship. Ultimately, you'll come back and conquest. I've got no doubt about that. You've been successful in the past. You've just got to be successful in a new direction now. And it takes a bit of time to learn it.
Absolutely. And I feel also to just demonstrate compassion and caring. Not can you want to buy something, but literally, I'm in the same boat. I care. Like you said, is there anything I can do to help? Relationship building, yes. Even just phoning people and connecting 1 or 2 a day and keeping that contact. They'll remember it when the time comes that they can re-establish business. That actually counts for all of us, not just for me. So thank you. Thank you for this time. Thank you for your speech, Michael.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
Misha, you're welcome to go. You're also welcome to put your video on if you want to, depending on your connectivity.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, my connectivity is really bad, so I won't do the video. I find myself vacillating through all the points on the curve, depending on the day and whether I have wool to change out of pajamas or not in the day. But yeah, I'm a development economist. My business is in sustainability and transformation consulting, and we do work in sort of community development initiatives and that sort of thing. This time has been particularly frustrating, I think, for us because we're obviously geared for on-the-ground support and disaster relief, and we've been a little bit curtailed by bureaucracy and people and the powers that are, and their general lack of willingness to adapt to the changing environment. So yeah, it has been a bit frustrating, but from a business perspective, and from our clients who are largely corporates and some larger foreign donors, you know, things look promising. There's a lot more empathy in the marketplace, which means that people want to do the sort of development work that we've been trying to get them to do, and it's from a place of sincerity and, yeah, like I said, empathy rather than compliance, which is a cool position to be in as a development consultant. But yeah, I mean, I think Michael alluded to that fact initially in your presentation, that, you know, the lack of willingness to change or adapt can be debilitating, I think, especially in those communities that kind of need the most help. So yeah, that's where
I'm sorry I can't
we
give
are.
you more in terms of saying, you know, pretty much similar to Gavin's area. A platform of empathy is what you need to stand for and stand proud upon. And that means you're the voice of reason, you're communicating coolly, calmly, and collectively. You're doing what you can and being seen to do what you can. And from that platform of empathy, hopefully as time passes and more people move through the curve, you're going to start to succeed a little more. You know, people, when you said earlier, you know, there's a lack of willingness to respond and a bit of ignorance on the part of government. It's because nobody knows. That's the real reason, I think, that we've chosen freeze. It's not fight or flight yet, it's freeze. And, you know, the government, as crazy as it is, and the decisions that they're making, I genuinely believe are being made with the best will and intentions in the world, but they just don't make sense on the ground. Be that voice of reason, be that platform of empathy. I know you have to rush off as well, but I'm also very happy. Just, you know, all email me afterwards and send me your emails if you need to, if you'd like a copy of the presentation, and I'll include on my email back to you, I'll include my contact details as well. I'm available to you as well for a chat should you need it, because, hey, I'm not going anywhere till October.
Wonderful, thank you. Odette, if you could go for us. Oh, you unmute. Let me just unmute you quickly. There you go. Go for it.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much, Michael, for that presentation. I would actually like to send that to all my clients. Well, I'm Odette Hartzenberg. I'm actually the leader of the Free State for the SACBW and then the Northern Cape as well. Sorry, that's with the English sometimes. We've got a marketing company, Iconic Management. So, yeah, actually, Michael, when you talked about the freeze of clients, I think a lot of my clients has the option of freezing when they hear what our services are. So I'm going to keep it to marketing. But yeah, there's basically everything to do with marketing. We've been busy with the COVID, very, very busy. Actually, at a stage where I was more, how can I say, sad that I would actually like to have a vacation, because we had to work with each client, thinking out ideas for them to still make money. So we haven't had time to look at our own business yet. So that's where we are with the COVID. But I think really this presentation is going to help everybody actually to start thinking about getting ideas themselves to start going on with business. And thank you so much. So that's me.
I love that. And, you know, to hear that someone's being very successful out of our people on this call and enjoying it is great. I mean, you will need a holiday afterwards. You know, it's kind of absolutely remarkable. I must tell you, by the way, there's an organization called Tint Swallow. I'll type it up for you on the message board. They're a game reserve. Or a series of properties. They are absolutely amazing. If you go and look at their social media at the moment, they're offering, it'll be perfect for you, Odette, afterwards. So they're offering 50% off their normal rates for people who need a holiday after lockdown. But they have the most incredible thing. One of their properties is called Tint Swallow Safari Lodge. It's very high end. It's in a private game reserve adjacent to the Kruger. You know, they had their staff locked down inside the Kruger. So what they decided to do in marketing, I just thought this was genius. They said, you know, and believe me, they're elite. I think it's about 28,000 Rand per person per night to go and stay there. but prior to lockdown. So what they did was they said, look, we've got our game ranges here. We've got our vehicles. We're going to shoot a game drive every single day. At night, we're going to edit it. Tomorrow morning, we're going to broadcast it to you on YouTube. Have a cup of coffee, watch a game drive, pull yourself away from all the negativity surrounding lockdown, and just watch our coffee-driven game drives. You know what happened? First day, over 100,000 downloads. Totally free marketing, totally unusual. And if you want to go and find them on YouTube, Tint Swallow Safari Lodge, Jesus, they've had leopard kills, they've had lion kills, they've got stuff going down, they've had lions chewing giraffes, unfortunately for the giraffes. I mean, it's absolutely fun. My wife will not miss it every single day. And then another story in that marketing sense of it, a chiropractor down the road from us, lovely young lady, built a chiropractic business. Obviously, she's shut down at the moment, can't trade. She ran lockdown locomotion from her home. She invented a series of 10-minute exercises that everybody could do for 10 minutes to get their mind off. She's gone through the roof in terms of followers and stuff. Both examples have built themselves really iconic brand names in their own particular areas. So we've got the ability to think of some really cool things to do. And I commend you, Odette, for the stuff that you're doing with your clients. It sounds pretty iconic to me. I don't know who that was, by the way. At least your husband. Was that your husband who snuck in the door behind you a few minutes ago?
Actually, it's the 3 little kids coming in, or Omar.
Okay.
We're on the farm at the moment.
It looked like a husband, and thank God he had clothes on, because I've seen enough of them. So congratulate him for wearing clothes. That's good. I haven't got any pants on, by the way. That's what
Goodness.
Good, thank you so much. Leslie, I think you haven't gone yet. I think that's it besides me.
Okay. Yes, my company there's actually twofold. The first one is a recruitment agency. It's called Hope Recruitment. It's a startup. So I'm a town planner by profession, but I didn't really practice much of town planning. But I've always had it in my heart to give people jobs. So I'm just coming in to the recruiting space just in terms of linking, candidates to clients. So one of the things that I'm working on now, firstly, is to bring the company online. And another Michael Andrew, coach who was on the previous show, he gave me a lot of pointers to actually put my company online, because you actually can run a recruitment company completely online. You can do video interviews and so forth. So I'm working on that. And also, I think just last week, I got a request to place 2 people. One is a recruitment admin and the other one is a bookkeeper. So when I look at the curve or the diagram you had, I would say that I'm on hope, progress, and belief, because there is a whole lot going on out there regarding jobs, and especially in the whole area of bringing companies back on during level 4. So I'm actually highly expectant to make a lot of placements. And also the other part that I'm also looking at is assisting people with their small businesses and helping people with startups as well. Just kind of connecting the dots for them. I'm watching a lot of webinars, and I'm just so excited because there's so much going on out there, and there's a lot we can do to plan now and do work now and also plan for the future as well. So yeah, I'm highly expectant. So thank you, Michael, for your input. It's been excellent and it's been great.
Leslie,
and
thank you.
For organizing the event as well. Thanks.
I want to ask you a question as well, Leslie, if I may. But firstly, what's kind of incredible is that I'm one of those dreadful middle-class people that wanted to take my doggies for a walk because they've been cooped up for 30-odd days. So when lockdown went to level 4, I was out there walking around my streets. We've got a little park at the end of where I live. And I ran into my neighbor, who's a recruitment consultant from just about 3 or 4 houses down. I've often seen her walking her dogs. All she did was bitch and moan from a safe distance, thank God. I almost wanted to pull my mask over my head about how shit business was. She's a recruitment consultant, about how a business is being destroyed, I needed to phone you because, I mean, my God, you know, the difference between you and her, I'd rather have you as a neighbor, and I know who I'd rather use as a recruitment consultant. So well done for that.
Thank you.
My other question to you, though, Leslie, is because I can see you watching in a smaller screen, are you doing this on a mobile phone? Are you watching on a mobile phone now?
Yes, I am.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to ask you how the slides came out on the mobile phone. Was it okay for you? Because
they are depending. If I orient if my camera is portrait, they're small, but when I make my camera landscape, then I can read it.
Okay, and so it wasn't too just on a personal level, it wasn't too boring for you or too hard to follow on a smartphone.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Cool. Thank you for that. Thank you. I appreciate it. And once again, I applaud you for what you're doing. That's bloody brilliant. More power to you. Go.
Thank you.
Brilliant. I think I've got everybody, and thank you all for sharing. Just a quick one about me. I am an event planner, the owner of Shayna. My name is Shayna. And yes, events obviously at the moment are in level 1. So it was quite a crazy time for my clients to try and reschedule everybody to a unpredictable new date. But the way I've tried to innovate is I've always been very communicative and open with my clients, so I've carried on doing that, and they seem to appreciate it. And then my big target this year is to do more weddings, generally in advance. I was generally planning for 2021 to be booked full of weddings, although the odds ones this year. So what I've done is actually I love to give free advice. People will tell me I give advice whether they like it or not. So I put that to good use, and I have free bridal webinars at the moment. So I'm aiming to have at least one a month where brides can just log on for an hour and then just bombard me with questions, and I happily give them a wedding planner's perspective from that side. So the idea is obviously to help because I love to do it, but the idea is that also 1 or 2 of those people who interact with me, my conversion rate's a lot higher when you actually meet me, because I can really read you and I'm a very good listener. So I tend to be able to tweak my pitch to you if I can see you in person. So yeah, that's the idea, and it seems to have worked so far. So, and I'm having fun and keeping myself busy with it. And then the other way is that I've actually bought the Zoom Pro so that I can offer my network at least to host meetings like this. So I've really enjoyed SSCBW being my guinea pig as well. They've seemed to like it. So that gave me the confidence to do that. It's just to tweak and help people online. And I'm actually also helping another business coach set up a series of seminars. So yeah, all on Zoom. So yes, enjoying the innovation. I do also have a nearly 2-year-old at home. So the kids running around. I wish I had as much time as people who don't have kids to do all what I want.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm definitely sleeping later, or should I say sleeping less than I used to, because I'm trying to do everything when she's asleep. But yes, I'm valuing the family time as well. So I would hope and acceptance and a little bit of progress.
Oh, I've got a co-worker here with me who's been incredibly quiet through the webinar, but normally he wants to make himself known and he types on the keypad. But that's my 4-year-old rather than a 2-year-old. So I empathize with you. Question to you on that though. Right now, looking at weddings, I mean, there must be an awful lot of frustration for them in terms of, you know, what you can do with them. I saw something on international media about a virtual wedding the other day. I'm not sure about the legality of those here yet, but I would imagine that there's an awful lot of venues that want to promote themselves drastically as soon as lockdown levels are lifted to the level where venues can come back into play again. And perhaps, you know, you've got a nice little thing where you can get into a review system on all of those venues right now, talk to them, share with them, work with them, and get them to work with you on Zoom platforms as well. And maybe get some virtual tours going of some really cool destinations that might work with you and your clients. Don't know?
Yeah, no, it's definitely something to look at. What I have been quite surprised about is I really thought that people would just sort of wait it out and have a small wedding and scrap it and save the money. But they seem to be, some will want to just have a court wedding quickly, but they want the big party, and they've actually quite sick and tired of the maybe not for 2020. So they're just completely re-diarizing for sometimes even a year ahead. Like they were planning on September this year and they're just going September next year. So that's been quite a shocker, it actually makes me a little nervous and very hopeful for my industry, because next year, once coronavirus is not really a thing and we can have a level 1, there's not going to be enough venues, there's not going to be enough caterers, there's not going to be enough marquee tents, because people are going to want to have their wedding somewhere. So we're going to have all the 2020 weddings plus the 2021 weddings. I hope that that's the case, at least.
I've just said I'm around for the next few months, so what the hell, you know. But I just wanted to thank you all from my side. You know, thank you for staying. I understand it's, you know, we've been on now for, what have we, oh God, quite a while. That's brilliant. I'm thrilled to have talked to you all. Thank you very much indeed. And, you know, just a reminder, if you would like the presentation, you can always send your stuff to Shana and she can get it across to me as well, or mail me directly. I'm happy to do so. But I'll put the PDF together of the slides, get them across to you, and look forward to engaging with you into the future. You're all welcome to talk to me at any time. You know, when you get my email back, my phone number's on there. I'm around. I'm just happy and doing what I can do. I'm certainly on the curve myself, moving from acceptance through to hope. And really, I'm hoping that my next job in Chicago is still on in October, because I've already bought the bloody ticket and I don't want to waste it with the airline concerned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you for the insight and your time, and ladies as well. As always, it's lovely to see old faces and new faces, and I look forward to the next one. I'm sure that Hanneli will, she's been handling all of this admin. I'm sure that she will pass everything on after this as well. And then just quick one, if you do know Sarita, please send her a happy birthday message. It is her birthday this weekend, or today, I'm saying. And yeah, have a wonderful weekend. Thank you all.